The big hall on the Zenith 7 space station was unlike anything the people had ever seen. The ceiling was so high that clouds could have formed near the top. The whole place felt like a dream because of the huge pillars made of some kind of alien crystal that held everything up and glowed with a soft purple light. But in the middle of it all, on a raised platform surrounded by shimmering force fields, was the thing that everyone wanted to see. The sacred armor of the Valerians. It looked old. Very old. The metal was so dark that it was almost black, but it was covered in strange symbols that glowed blue-white and pulsed like a heartbeat. The armor was very big, probably 8 feet tall, with wide shoulders and a helmet with 4 eye holes instead of 2. It was empty, but it somehow felt like it was alive. As if it were keeping an eye on everyone who walked by. Captain Robert Hayes walked slowly down the hall, and the sound of his footsteps echoed on the smooth floor. He was trying to look calm and polite, like a captain should when he or she is representing Earth at fancy alien museums. His team followed him. Their pilot, Jack Morrison, kept looking around like a tourist. Linda Brooks, the head of security, came next. She walked with her hand close to her sidearm. She didn't have much faith in aliens, especially the Valerians. And last but not least, there was Emily Grant. Emily was a new member of the team. 3 weeks ago, she was given the diplomatic mission because their regular engineer got sick. She looked to be about 25 and had brown hair that was pulled back into a messy ponytail. No matter how many times she washed it, her Earth Fleet engineering uniform always had grease stains on it. Emily was really good at her job, but she had one problem. She was easily distracted. At that moment, she wasn't even looking at the famous armor. She was looking up at the ceiling and the thick power cords that ran along the walls like veins. She squinted at them and started to chew on her bottom lip, which she always did when she was trying to figure something out. She said to herself, "This is totally pointless. They're sending way too much power through those pipes. They could save 30% on energy costs if they just went through the secondary." "Emily," Jack said in a low voice. "Listen up." But Emily had already stopped moving. She was backing up and tilting her head to see where the cables connected to the main power junction near the ceiling. Their Valerian guide was talking at the same time. Commander Volth was very big even for his kind. He was almost 9 feet tall, had purple-gray skin that looked like stone, and 4 arms with 3-fingered hands at the ends. His voice was deep and rumbling, and when he spoke, it made your chest vibrate. "You are standing in front of the Valerian people's greatest treasure," Volth said, opening all 4 arms wide. "This armor has been the symbol of our empire for 3,000 years on Earth. Only the most honored warriors, the best champions our species has ever made, have worn it." A small group of other aliens had come to see the humans go around the museum. Of course there were Valerians, but there were also a few Threxians with bodies that looked like bugs, some Corvin that floated and looked like jellyfish made of light, and some other creatures that Emily couldn't identify. Their faces showed a range of feelings, from curiosity to barely hidden contempt, as they watched the humans. "The armor is more than just metal and circuits," Volth said, his voice getting more serious. "It's alive. It has a spirit. It makes judgments about those who come near. No one who is not a Valerian has ever been allowed to touch it. People who have tried without permission." He stopped for a moment to make a point. "Well, the armor has ways to punish those who don't deserve it." Robert nodded in agreement. "Commander, it's an honor to be able to get this close to such an important artifact." "Yes," Volth said, puffing out his big chest. "We Valerians are kind people. We let other species see how great we are so that they can try to be like us." Emily ran into the display case at that point. She had been walking backward, still looking at the power cables, trying to figure out how they were wired in her head. Her foot got stuck on the edge of the raised platform. She tripped, reached out to catch herself, and her hand hit the shimmering force field that kept the armor safe. Nothing happened for a second. And then everything went wrong at the same time. The force field flickered. It made a sound like glass breaking, a high-pitched scream that hurt everyone's ears. All over the hall, red warning lights came on and started to spin and flash. Jack had to cover his ears because the alarms were so loud. And the force field, which was supposed to be an unbreakable wall that had kept the sacred armor safe for 3,000 years, just disappeared. Emily's hand, which had been pressed against the field, suddenly had nothing to stop it. She fell forward, and her fingers touched the cold, dark metal of the armor. The alarms were the only thing that could be heard in the whole hall. All of the Valerians in the room stopped moving. Their eyes got big. Their mouths dropped open. They stared at Emily for a long time. She was standing there with her hand on their most sacred object and looked terrified. The face of Commander Volth changed colors. From purple to red to almost white. After that, someone in the crowd started to laugh. There was a Valerian guard near the back. He had seen this clumsy little person just walk up to the thing they had been protecting for thousands of years and touch it. The laughter was loud and wheezy, as if he couldn't believe what he had just seen. A second Valerian joined in. Then one more. In a matter of seconds, the sound of aliens laughing at Emily filled the entire hall. They bent over. They hit their knees. Some of them were laughing so hard that they cried. One of them yelled, "The human touched it." The little, weak person just walked up and touched the sacred armor. "Did you see her face?" another one said, laughing hard. Now Emily's face was very red. She pulled her hand back from the armor as if it had burned her. "I'm sorry," she said, stammering. "I didn't mean to. I was just looking at the power systems and didn't see where I was going." But no one was paying attention. They were too busy to laugh. But Commander Volth wasn't laughing. His face had turned a dark, angry purple. He moved forward, fists clenched. "This is disrespect," he said in a low voice. "Your primitive engineer has broken our most sacred." He stopped speaking. Everyone stopped laughing. Because the armor was shining. The big hall shook with laughter like thunder. The Valerians were bent over, holding their stomachs, and their forearms were flailing as they tried to catch their breath. Some of them were laughing so hard that they fell to their knees. "She touched it," one of them was able to say between fits of laughter. "The little person really did touch the sacred armor." "Look at how small she is," another one wheezed, pointing at Emily with both of his arms. "She probably weighs less than my left leg." Emily's face had gone from red to almost white. Her hand was still on the armor, as if she was afraid to move it. She could feel hundreds of strange eyes on her and hear the mocking laughter bouncing off the crystal walls. This was supposed to be a simple diplomatic trip. Go through a museum, smile, and don't start a fight in space. In less than 5 minutes, she had ruined everything. Commander Volth pushed through the crowd, and the floor shook with each heavy step. Emily's brain registered that his face had turned a dark purple color that was very, very bad. His knuckles had turned white because he was holding all 4 of his fists so tightly. "This is desecration," he yelled, and his voice was so loud that it drowned out the laughter. "Your primitive engineer has done something terrible to the Valerian people. She has broken our most sacred." He stopped talking in the middle of a sentence. His mouth was wide open. His eyes got big. There was a glow around the armor. At first it was just a faint glow, like the waves of heat rising off hot pavement. But then the runes, which are strange symbols carved into the old metal, began to glow. They glowed with a soft blue light, like a candle flame at first. But the light was spreading, moving like water over the armor and following the paths of the carved symbols. The glow was strongest where Emily's hand touched the armor and her fingers were still on the cold, dark metal. People stopped laughing. The only sounds in the hall were the hum of the station's life support systems and the faint crackling of the glowing armor. Emily looked at her hand. The light was cozy. It felt good to her skin, like a pleasant tingling that went up her arm and into her chest. It didn't hurt. It was almost like a welcome. Then someone in the crowd started to laugh again. It was even louder this time. "It's broken," yelled a Valerian near the front, hitting his knee with both hands and pointing with the other two. "The armor has finally stopped working. It's finally gone crazy after 3,000 years." The laughter spread quickly. In a matter of seconds, the whole crowd was roaring again, and this time it was even louder. "Of course it would break now," someone else yelled. "Right when the weakest species in the galaxy touches it." "Maybe it short-circuited from the shock," someone else said, and that made everyone laugh even more. A young Valerian technician pushed ahead and took out a scanning tool of some kind. He said in a serious tone, "The old systems must have gotten worse over time. It's impossible for the armor to really pick a human. That's not possible in science." But Commander Volth didn't find it funny. He was looking at the armor with a look that Emily couldn't quite figure out. Was it confusion? Fear? Anger? All 3 maybe. He muttered, "Impossible," as he moved closer. "The armor can't break. The ancients made it. Their tech never breaks. It doesn't make any mistakes." He looked at Emily, then back at the armor. He spoke in a voice that was barely a whisper. "Is it choosing her?" When the crowd heard that, the laughter got even louder. Some Valerians were actually rolling on the floor right now. "Choosing her?" one of them yelled. "Commander, did you lose your mind along with your armor?" "People are weak," another person yelled. "Look at them the wrong way and their bones break. Their skin rips like paper." The technician shook his head and said, "They come from a backwater planet that only found out about faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They're not even close to being space-worthy. They aren't fighters. They're not even a danger to anyone. Linda Brooks, the head of security, stepped forward. Her hand moved toward the gun. She said softly, "I think that's enough," but there was steel in her voice. Captain Robert Hayes stopped her by raising a hand. His jaw was tight, but his face was calm. He had been dealing with aliens who looked down on humans for a long time. It never got easier to hear. It looked like Commander Volth had made up his mind. He stood up straight, making himself taller than everyone else in the room. His voice had the weight of authority when he spoke. "Very well," he said, and the laughter slowly stopped as Valerians realized he was serious. "If the armor really has accepted this, human, then she needs to show that she deserves that acceptance." Emily was finally able to get her hand away from the armor. The light dimmed a little but didn't go away. "Commander, I really didn't mean to." "Shut up." Volth interrupted her. "The armor has made its choice, even though that seems impossible. But it is not a right to wear the sacred armor. It is a duty. That is an honor that must be earned." His smile was cruel and his eyes narrowed. "You will go into the crucible." The crowd gasped. Other people were shocked too. "The crucible?" The pilot, Jack Morrison, stepped forward. "Wait, isn't that what you learned in the military?" Volth cut in, "It is our most sacred trial. For 3,000 years, every Valerian who has worn this armor has had to survive the crucible first. A lot of them don't make it. Most of them fail in the first hour." He looked at Emily like she was a bug. "If this person thinks she is worthy, she will show it. She will have to go through the same things that our best warriors have. And when she fails," another Valerian said with a nasty grin, "humanity will pay for the insult of this day." Emily's stomach dropped. She looked at Captain Hayes, hoping he would have a way to fix the problem without fighting. But Hayes was staring at Commander Volth, and she could tell he was thinking about something. People would think they were cowards if they said no. It would set back relations between humans and Valerians by decades. But it would be even worse if Emily tried and failed, which seemed very likely. "Sir," Emily said in a low voice, "I didn't mean to make all this trouble. I was just looking at the power systems and not paying attention to where I was going." "Yes," Hayes said. He turned to look at her, and his face relaxed a little. "None of this is your fault, Emily. But we're here now, so we have to deal with it." He stopped. "Are you able to do this?" Emily turned around and looked at the armor. It was still glowing and pulsing with that weird blue light. And there was something about it that felt right. She felt something when she touched it, even if it was only for a second. Like acknowledgement. Like going home to a place she'd never been before. Her brain was screaming that this was crazy. She was an engineer, not a soldier. She had never been in a real fight. She was born and raised in Nevada and spent her teenage years taking apart and putting back together old engines. The most dangerous thing she had ever done was climb a radio tower to fix a transmitter during a storm. But there was a deeper part of her that was saying something else. Her father had been in the military. Also her grandfather. During the worst of the wildfires, her great-grandmother was a firefighter in California. Grants never backed down from a challenge, even a dumb one. Even the ones that can't be done. "I'll try," she heard herself say. The Valerians laughed even more. Some of them were taking out phones, probably to record this for future generations. People would tell the story of the day a person tried and failed to finish the crucible for years to come. Volth's smile showed all of his teeth. "Great. We start right away." He pointed to two guards. "Get the crucible ready. Make it standard difficulty. We don't want to make it too easy for our special guest." He clearly meant the opposite when he said, "honored guest." Emily felt someone grab her shoulder as the guards moved to do what she said. Linda Brooks was the one. Linda said softly, "You don't have to do this. We can find another way." But Emily shook her head. "No, we can't do that." She looked at the armor once more. "I think I should." The armor's glow got brighter for a second, as if it agreed with her. They took Emily down to a preparation room deep inside the museum. Everything in the room was too big because it was made for Valerians. The ceiling was 20 feet high, and the doors were big enough for a truck to fit through. The sacred armor was in the middle of the room on a raised platform. Two Valerian technicians stood nearby, staring at Emily like she was a failed science experiment. One of them made a gesture that was probably like shaking his head in disbelief for an alien. "Get close to the armor," Commander Volth said. Along with what seemed like half of the station's residents, he had followed them down. Everyone wanted to see this. Emily walked up to the stage. She felt shaky in her legs, but she made them keep moving. The armor looked even better up close. And scary. Every piece looked like it was too heavy to lift. The chest plate alone may have weighed more than she did. How do I? She began to ask. She didn't have time to finish. The armor moved by itself. With a hiss of releasing pressure, the back panel split open. The inside glowed with the same blue light, and Emily could see thousands of tiny threads, like light nerves, waiting inside. Come in, Volth said. If the armor really likes you, it will stick to your body. If it hasn't, he smiled in a way that made him look bad. Well, rejection hurts a lot. Sometimes deadly. Emily took a big breath. After that, she stepped back into the armor. The feeling came on quickly and was too much to handle. The metal closed around her like a huge hand slowly folding its fingers. She heard clicking and whirring sounds as the plates moved and locked into place. The helmet came down over her head, and for a second everything went black. After that, the neural interface turned on. It felt like someone had put a live wire on her head. She felt tiny needles of sensation shoot through her skull. It wasn't painful, but it was strong. Emily gasped and made fists with her hands. Her mind was filled with information. The state of the system. Levels of power. Integrity of armor. It was too much too quickly, like trying to drink from a fire hose. After a while, it started to make sense. The mess got itself together. The armor system started to talk to her nervous system, finding a rhythm and a pattern. Emily could feel the armor's weight, which was 300 pounds, but she could also feel the mechanical muscles in every joint, ready to make her stronger. She moved one step. The armor moved with her like silk. She moved forward again. Then one more. One of the technicians muttered, "Impossible. Usually it takes hours to sink. Days even." The other one said, "She's a person. Maybe their simple brains are easier to work with." Emily wanted to tell them exactly where they could put their thoughts about primitive brains, but Volth was already on his way. He told them, to the Crucible. They walked through a series of hallways, each one bigger than the last, until they got to a huge room that must have been at least half a mile wide. The floor was smooth and made of a dark stone. But the walls weren't strong. They were made of pure energy, and they shone like blue-white fields of light that curved up and over to make a dome. There were viewing stands all around the top levels of the room. There were already a lot of aliens in them. Word got around quickly. Hundreds of creatures from many different species had come to see the human fail. Emily walked to the middle of the arena, and her footsteps echoed in the big space. She could hear the crowd above through the armor's sensors. They were having a good time. Speaking. Placing bets. 50 credits say she won't last a minute, someone said. You're being kind. I give her 30 seconds. I bet 100 she doesn't even try to fight. She'll just cry and curl up. The laughter flowed through the room like waves. Captain Hayes and the rest of her team were also in the stands, but they weren't laughing. Jack had a worried look on his face. Linda looked mad. Hayes just looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite understand. The speakers built into the walls made Commander Volta's voice suddenly echo through the arena. Welcome to the Crucible. This arena has been testing the best warriors of the Valerian Empire for 3,000 years. A lot of people have failed. Some have passed away. We have a special challenger today. The crowd laughed more. Someone who has been accepted by the sacred armor, Volth said, and the way he said it made it sound like an insult. She will now show if that acceptance was deserved or if the armor has finally gone crazy. That made the crowd laugh out loud. First trial, Volth said. Combat skills. Our challenger will have to fight 3 Valerian warriors who are wearing trial armor. She has to beat them or they will beat her. The far wall had 3 doors that opened. 3 huge Valerians came out, each one wearing armor that looked like Emily's but was painted red like training gear. Every warrior was at least 8 feet tall and had a body like a tank. With every step, their armor made loud thudding sounds. Emily's mouth got dry. The armor was giving her information about her enemies through the helmet's display. Each one weighs about 800 pounds. Strength, thought to be 4 times what a human can do. Experience in battle, a lot. The 3 fighters moved apart to make a triangle with Emily in the middle. They weren't in a hurry. They didn't have to. Before it even started, they knew they had won. Start. Volta's voice was loud. For a second, no one moved. The crowd held its breath. Then the Valerians ran at them. They came at her from 3 sides at once, and their armored feet shook the ground. The one closest to her, right in front of her, pulled back his fist to throw a punch that could probably knock over a car. Emily's mind went into overdrive. She couldn't fight strength with strength. That was a death wish. These warriors were bigger, stronger, and more experienced. The whole point of this fight was for her to lose. So she didn't try to win their way. The first warrior's punch hit her like a freight train. Emily didn't stop it. She fell. She let her legs give way and used the weight of the armor to fall straight down. The huge fist whistled over her head and she could feel the wind from it. She was down there, crouched low, and she hit out with one armored leg. Not at his body. On his knee. She hit the joint from the side not to break it, but to push it in a way that knees aren't supposed to go. The warrior's leg gave out. He fell because he lost his balance due to his own momentum and the surprise hit. Emily didn't wait for him to fall. The second warrior was coming from her left and was already too close. There was an energy pike on the ground that had been left there from a previous test. Emily took it without thinking. It weighed about 40 pounds and was about 8 feet long with a glowing tip. Emily put one end on the ground and jumped over it just like a pole vaulter does. The armor was strong enough for her to swing her whole body up and around. Her armored feet hit the second warrior right in the head. The sound of the impact was like a gong. The warrior's helmet got a dent. His head jerked back. He staggered, trying to keep his balance by swinging his arms. But Emily still had more to say. The third warrior had come up behind her. She heard his heavy footsteps and the whining of the servo motors in his armor as he reached for her. He got her. His huge arms wrapped around her body, holding her arms to her sides. He picked her up off the ground as if she were a feather. He growled in her ear, "Gotcha, little human." The people cheered. They had been waiting for this. The moment the person knew she was completely outmatched. But Emily had 3 older brothers when she was growing up. She knew what it was like to be grabbed by someone bigger and stronger. She became completely limp. Let her drop all of her weight, which is 300 pounds of armor and 130 pounds of her body. The warrior thought she would fight him and try to get away from him. He had to change how he held her when she suddenly became dead weight so he wouldn't drop her. That was the chance Emily had been waiting for. She twisted hard and the armor's motors helped her. The warrior's grip slipped. Emily got one arm free and hit him in the chest with her elbow. What? 2 times. The third time she felt something break. His grip got even looser. Emily twisted again, this time putting all of her weight on one side. Physics took over. The warrior couldn't make up for it fast enough because her elbow strikes had already thrown her off balance. Both of them fell. The warrior hit the ground first and it was hard enough to break the stone. Emily fell on top of him, driving her armored knee into his chest. He let out a whoosh of air. Emily rolled off of him and stood up, breathing hard. The armor's display showed that her heart rate was 160 and rising. She was sweating a lot inside the helmet. All 3 soldiers were out. The first one was still on one knee, favoring his leg that was bent too far. The second was shaking his head to try to clear it after getting kicked in the head by an armored person. The third was on his back trying to catch his breath. It took 3 minutes and 40 seconds for the whole fight to end. The crowd was quiet. Not a sound at all. Emily stood in the middle of the arena, her chest heaving, and looked at the 3 Valerian warriors she had just beaten. Then little by little the silence broke. But this time it wasn't funny. It wasn't that. Surprise. What is going on? And from somewhere in the back of the stands, one voice began to clap slowly. Before Emily had fully caught her breath from the first trial, the second one started. The floor of the crucible suddenly fell away from her feet. Not everything, just parts, falling like pieces of a puzzle into the dark below. There were still platforms, maybe 20 of them, floating in space. And then the weight stopped working. Emily's stomach dropped when she lost weight. She fell down, completely confused, with her arms and legs flailing around. Without gravity, it was even harder to control the armor. All that weight and speed with nothing to push against. Second trial. The arena echoed with Commander Volta's voice. Fighting in 0 gravity. Defeat your enemies while keeping control of a battlefield in 3 dimensions. More Valerian warriors showed up on the other platforms, and their armor jets were already firing, which gave them perfect control in the weightless environment. They had practiced for this. Emily had not. The first one hit her like a missile. Emily tried to move out of the way but she just spun in place. The warrior hit her in the ribs with his fist. She could feel it even through the armor. The impact knocked her over and sent her flying across the empty space. She hit one of the energy walls with a crack that she felt in her teeth. She didn't pass that test. It went very badly. By the time it was over, she had 2 broken ribs and a concussion that made the armor screen swim in front of her eyes. But she stood up again. The third trial was worse. It was a kind of war game with a strategy. Emily had to lead fake soldiers against a Valerian force that had been using the same tactics for hundreds of years. She had never learned how to do this. She did things wrong. Lost units. Lost ground. She didn't do well on that one either. The fourth trial was a long-distance run. A course that went through obstacles and barriers and required constant movement, problem-solving, and physical effort. The armor system said that Valerian warriors would finish in about 4 hours on average. Emily fell after 3 hours. Her legs just stopped working. She hit the ground hard and lay there for a moment, every muscle in her body screaming. The people in the stands laughed again. There it was. Proof that people are weak after all. It was luck that the first trial worked. Everyone could see the truth now. But then Emily got up. Her arms shook. Her legs could barely hold her up. But she got out of bed. And she didn't stop. Things started to get weird at that point. A Valerian warrior was running the same course as Emily, but a few minutes ahead of her. He fell about 4 hours in just like Emily had. He fell, rolled, and just stayed there. Out of energy. Asked for medical help. Emily had already been there for 5 hours. She had fallen 12 more times. She was limping now, favoring her left leg where she had hurt it. But she was still going. Commander Volth was looking at the monitors in the observation room above the crucible with a look of growing confusion. He asked, "How is she still going?" "Check her vital signs. She should have passed out an hour ago." There was an old scientist nearby. His name was Dr. Thane and he was a Corvin. His kind were scholars, not fighters, and he had been very interested in the readouts. His body was clear and jellyfish-like, and it pulsed with bioluminescent thought patterns. "Interesting," Thane said softly, his tentacles moving around on a holographic screen. "Commander, check out these readings. She can handle a lot more pain than we thought she could. And her body's reaction to stress is strange." "What do you mean by unusual?" Volth growled. "Her body is making cortisol and adrenaline at levels that should be toxic, but it is handling it well. And look here." Thane pointed out a part of the readout. "Yes, her muscles are hurt, but they are still working. A Valerian warrior with this much muscle damage would not be able to keep going." A new trial started. This one had a Threxian fighter in it. Threxians are insect-like creatures that are known for their amazing ability to last. The Threxian was put in a stress chamber, something designed to push subjects to their absolute limits. After 3 hours, the Threxian gave up. The weather was too bad for them. Too hot, too cold, too much stress, and not enough oxygen. The constant change was making it harder for him to adapt. Emily went into the same room for her version of the trial. She was still going 6 hours later. Around hour 4, she stopped being able to think clearly. All I could feel was pain and the need to keep going. Her sight had narrowed to a small point. She couldn't feel her fingers anymore. But there was something in her brain, a stubborn core that wouldn't give up, that kept her legs moving. She was born and raised in the desert outside of Reno, Nevada. Temperatures in the summer that reached 115 degrees. Cold nights in the winter. Her father had been a Marine, and he had taught her to think that way. Pain is just a sign. Being tired is just a feeling. You keep going until the job is done. More scientists had come to the observation room. People at the station were talking about something strange that was going on. "I don't get it," said a Threxian who was watching Emily stumble through the stress chamber. "People are supposed to be weak. Their home planet is in the garden category. Low evolutionary pressure, mild climate, and lots of resources." Dr. Thane made a noise like water bubbling. "I think we might need to change the way we look at that test. Check out these geological records I found about Earth." He showed a hologram of the world. Temperature changes of 140 degrees between the two extremes. Tectonic activity causes earthquakes all the time. Eruptions of volcanoes. Hurricanes. Tornadoes. Tsunamis. "That's normal for planets," Volth said with a shrug. "Is it?" Thane got more information. Earth's gravity is 1.3 times that of the galactic standard. That means that everyone here has been carrying extra weight their whole lives. Their bones are 40% denser than ours. Every time their hearts beat, their cardiovascular systems have to work harder. More scientists were now crowded around the displays, whispering to each other. "Look at this," Thane said, clearly excited now, "the history of human evolution. They didn't evolve to be the top predators. They were animals that were hunted. They lived by outliving the animals that hunted them. They called it persistence hunting. They would chase prey animals for hours or even days until the prey fell over from being too tired." Volth's face was very still. "Are you saying that humans evolved to last? Evolution happened on a planet that tried very hard to kill them, and they lived by refusing to die." The trials went on. Emily had to deal with combat situations, puzzles, tests of her reaction time, and making decisions under pressure. She failed some. Did well at some. But it was becoming clear what the pattern was. She didn't stop trying. When her weapons broke, she used things that were lying around in the arena. She used her hands when there was no more debris. She changed her plans when they didn't work. She got back up after she fell. The other aliens were starting to see. The laughing had stopped. They now watched in silence, and their faces showed that they were starting to respect what they saw. The last trial finally started. Volth said, "The final test," and for the first time his voice didn't sound like he was making fun of them. Just a grim will. This simulation shows how the armor was meant to work. A hole in the hull of a station. Enemies coming in. People are leaving behind you. Your job is easy, keep the line. Don't let them get through. Hold it for as long as you can. The simulation came to life around Emily. She was in a hallway. She could see holographic civilians, families with kids, and old people running to evacuation ships behind her. There was a huge hole in the hull in front of her, and the enemy came through it. They looked like bad dreams. Things that were made of shadow and claws, had too many limbs and eyes that glowed red. The simulation showed an ancient threat that the armor was made to fight. They came in a wave. Many of them. Then a lot. Emily stood her ground and faced them head-on. The first hour was a mess. Firing energy weapons. Claws scraping against armor. Emily moved on instinct, and the armor's combat systems gave her targeting data faster than she could think about it. During the second hour, her energy weapon got too hot and stopped working. She picked up a piece of broken pipe and kept going. The pipe broke after 4 hours. She began using pieces of trash as clubs and throwing them. There was no debris left after 6 hours. She used her armored hands. At 8 hours, the armor's power systems began to fail. Parts went dark. The servos stopped working. Emily was now carrying all 300 pounds and her own muscles were doing the work. Emily's arms were numb by hour 10. She couldn't feel her legs. All I could feel was the need to hold the line. The last of the civilians were getting on the ships behind her. Almost there. Almost safe. The enemy kept coming. Emily kept going. Finally, the simulation came to an end. The breach was sealed. The enemies disappeared. The holographic people were gone. They had been safely evacuated. Emily was the only one in the hallway that was now empty. She swayed on her feet for a moment. Then her legs gave out and she fell. The stands for the people watching were completely quiet. All of the screens in the observation room showed Emily's biometrics. Her heart rate was too high for safety. Her core temperature was high enough to be a fever. Her muscles were hurt in a way that was consistent with extreme overexertion. The pain signals her nervous system was sending should have made her pass out hours ago. But she had stayed awake. She had kept the line. Dr. Thane's voice was soft with surprise. 10 hours. She fought for 10 hours. 6 was the longest any Valerian has ever lasted in that simulation. Commander Volth didn't say anything. He just looked at the screen that showed Emily's body lying on the ground. Then the armor talked. The voice came from every speaker and display screen on the station at once. It was old and deep with the weight of 3,000 years on it. Worthy. There was no sound at all in the crucible. There were thousands of aliens in the stands and none of them were making a sound. They all looked at the screens that showed Emily's vital signs, the human girl who had fallen to the floor of the arena, and the impossible thing she had just done. The armor started to shine after that. It wasn't the soft blue light that had been there before. This was not the same. More light. The runes on the old metal shone like stars, so bright that people in the stands had to cover their eyes. The light spread out from Emily's still body, lighting up the whole arena. And then something came into view above her. At first it was just a shimmer in the air like heat waves. But it quickly turned into a huge, three-dimensional hologram. The shape that appeared was human-like but not human. It was at least 12 feet tall, but its proportions were a little off. Its arms were too long and its fingers had too many joints. A helmet that might have been part of its skull covered its face. The hologram was see-through and glowed with the same bright light. This was the AI for the armor. The smart thing that had been sleeping inside the metal for 3,000 years. When the hologram spoke, its voice resonated at a frequency that people could feel in their bones. It spoke in a language that no one knew but somehow everyone got it. The words didn't go through their ears, they went straight into their minds. "I have waited for 3,000 cycles of your stars," the old voice said. The crowd gasped and whispered in a panic. Even Commander Volth took a step back without meaning to, with his 4 arms raised in what could have been either defense or respect. The AI went on, "I have lived with the Valerians for 3,000 years. I've seen your soldiers. Tested your best players. You are strong. You are very brave. You are a good person in your own way." Volth's chest swelled a little with pride at the praise. Other Valerians around him stood up straighter. "But you aren't what I was made to find." The words hit me like a punch. Valtha's face changed colors a lot. First purple, then red, and finally a sickly gray. What? But we have served the armor well for generations. Our best fighters have worn. You're warriors, the AI said, cutting them off. Its tone wasn't harsh, but it was final. You are very good at being a warrior. You know what strength is. You understand how to fight, win, and be honorable. These are things that are worth a lot. The hologram turned, and its faceless gaze swept across the aliens who were watching from the stands. But warriors are not enough. I wasn't made to find the strongest. I wasn't made to find the fastest or the best fighter. I was made to look for survivors. The hologram looked at Emily from above. She was still on the ground, barely awake, and her chest was rising and falling in ragged breaths inside the armor. Look, the AI said, and all of the screens in the crucible changed right away. They showed pictures, data, and information that moved by so quickly that most people couldn't read it. This person evolved on a planet that your databases call a garden. Not too hot or too cold. Lots of resources. Low level of threat. Dr. Thane, the Corvin scientist, was working hard on his datapad. Hold on, that classification comes from early scans. We never looked closely at Earth because we didn't think it was important enough. The AI said, your classification is wrong. There were new pictures on the screens. From space, Earth looks beautiful, blue, and peaceful as it slowly spins. Then the view got closer and it wasn't quiet at all. Hurricanes as big as countries. Tornadoes that could wipe out cities in minutes. Earthquakes that break the ground apart. Volcanoes that covered the sun with ash. Tsunamis that wiped out whole coastlines. The temperature can go from 130 degrees above freezing to 100 degrees below it. The AI said, this world tried very hard to kill people. For millions of your years, it threw everything at them. And they lived. The screens were flooded with more data. The history of human evolution. The chart showed that many branches of the human family tree ended in extinction. Neanderthals. Denisovans. Homo erectus. There were many different types of humans that had lived and died. They lived on when other, stronger species did not, the AI said. They made it through ice ages. They lived through droughts that lasted for generations. They lived through predators that were faster, stronger, and better armed than they were. One long-fingered hand waved at the hologram, and the screens changed again. This time they showed data that could be compared. Human biology next to Valerian, Threxian, and a dozen other species. The AI said, look at their gravity. 1.3 times your galactic standard. Everyone here has been carrying extra weight since they learned to walk. To make up for this, their bones are denser. Their muscles have to work harder. Their hearts have to work harder to pump blood. As Dr. Thane frantically recalculated years of assumptions, he made small sounds of distress. The gravity differential. That means their strength-to-weight ratio is actually, oh no, we were very wrong about this. The AI continued, look at the composition of their atmosphere. 21% of oxygen. You breathe about 16% of the time. The air on Earth would be slightly intoxicating to you. It is normal for them. Their bodies burn hotter, faster, and more efficiently. Check out how much pain they can take. The screens showed Emily's biometric data from the tests, with the parts where her nervous system was sending out signals that should have put her to sleep. Their threshold is much higher than the average for the galaxy. They can still work even when they are hurt badly enough to kill most other species. Valth was now staring at the screens, his face showing a mix of fear and dawning understanding. But most importantly, the AI said, and its voice got softer, almost kind. Look at what they do when they fall. The screens showed clips from Emily's trials again. Her falling in zero gravity and then getting back up. She fell during the endurance run and then got back up. Her weapons breaking, but she quickly adapted by finding new ones, using debris and using her hands. The AI said, humans don't have the strongest bodies. They don't have the quickest reflexes. They aren't the smartest, longest-lived, or best-armed species. But they have something even more rare. They are persistent. They can change. They just won't give up no matter what. The shape of the hologram changed and it got brighter. You wouldn't know the species that made me. They are dust now and they have been gone for a long time. But before they disappeared, they saw something. A vision of a future where the galaxy would face a threat that couldn't be stopped by strength alone. A threat that would need strength. Adaptation. Surviving against all odds. They made me to look. To try. To look for the species that could live when it shouldn't be possible. I've been looking for 3,000 years. The hologram looked at Emily again. Captain Hayes had gotten down to the arena floor and was kneeling next to her, checking her vital signs. Jack and Linda were there too, standing around their fallen crewmate to protect him. And now I've found them. The armor started to move. Plates unlocked and moved apart, carefully pulling away from Emily's hurt body. But it didn't just go away. Instead, it changed, folding and compacting, with pieces sliding into other pieces with the skill of a master craftsman. The 300-pound suit of armor shrank down to a bracer the size of a watch in just a few seconds. It then sealed itself around Emily's left forearm. Hayes helped Emily get up. Her hair was stuck to her head and she was covered in sweat. Her face was pale and there were dark circles around her eyes. She looked like she had fought a freight train 10 times. But she was happy. Not much. Commander Volth left the observation room. His heavy footsteps echoed as he crossed the arena floor. The other Valerians moved aside to let him through, and the people watching held their breath. He stopped in front of her. He stared at her for a long time. This tiny, weak-looking person had just passed tests that had killed Valerian champions, who had been able to last when it should have been impossible. Then Volth did something that no one else had ever seen a Valerian do. He put one huge fist over the place where his 2 hearts beat in his chest. After that, he bowed. He didn't just nod his head. He bowed deeply and formally, putting his head below Emily's. "We didn't think you were that good," he said, and the arena was silent. "We saw weakness in your size. We looked at your tech and saw basic things. We looked at your world and saw a garden." He stood up straight and looked Emily in the eye. "We were stupid. We won't do that again." The other Valerians in the arena bowed one at a time. Next came the Threxians. After that, the Corvin. In no time, every alien in the stands was doing something to show respect for the tired human girl sitting on the floor of the arena. Emily looked at Captain Hayes. "Sir, did I just?" "Yeah," Hayes said, and he was smiling now. "You changed everything." Word spread through the galaxy faster than the speed of light. Within a few hours, all of the major species had heard about what happened at the Zenith 7 station. The person who wore the sacred armor. The hard time she had been through. The ancient AI's big news. The Galactic Council's view of humanity changed overnight. People who had only barely tolerated the species, made fun of it, or even completely ignored it were now looking at it in a whole new way. More people on Earth were getting ready to go to space. They came from the Sahara Desert, where the temperature could change by 80 degrees from day to night. They came from the tundra in Siberia, where winter could kill in minutes. They came from the Himalayas, where the air was so thin that most aliens couldn't breathe. They came from research stations in the deep ocean, volcanic islands, and coasts that had been hit by hurricanes. They came from a world that had been trying to kill them for millions of years. And they were still alive. They had changed. They had kept going. They had learned how to get back up after falling. They had learned how to keep going even when it seemed impossible. They had learned that pain was just a sign, tired was just a feeling, and you didn't stop working until the job was done. The galaxy was about to find out what that meant. Emily finally got up in the crucible. She was standing, but her legs shook and she had to lean on Hayes for support. The blue light that pulsed through the bracer on her arm showed that the armor's AI was now in its new home. She asked, "What happens now?" Hayes looked at the aliens who had gathered, the Valerians who were bowing, and the representatives from a dozen different species who were already trying to get to her. "Now," he asked, "everything is different now. For you. For the Earth. For all of us." Emily looked at the bracer. "I just wanted to fix some wires." Hayes laughed. "Well, engineer, you did a lot more than that." Above them, the holographic AI spoke one last time. Its voice could be heard all over the station, on every ship in orbit, and in every part of the galaxy where beings were watching and listening. "The time of warriors is coming to an end. The time of survivors has begun. And people will show the way." The light from the bracer pulsed again, bright and steady, like a heart beating. Like a vow. Like hope.